A global equity fund is an excellent option for investors, and for many people it may be the only fund they need. The problem is there are literally thousands of funds to choose from, so how do you decide which one's right for you? The first consideration is cost. Every pound you save in fees and charges is a pound that compounds over time, speeding you towards your financial goals. Secondly, global diversification is essential. Being diversified not only reduces your concentration risk, it also produces better returns in the long run. And thirdly, always opt for a passive or broadly passive fund rather than an active one. In the long run, the vast majority of active funds underperform passive funds on a properly cost and risk adjusted basis. So, a passively managed, globally diversified exchange traded fund, or ETF, ticks all the boxes. And here are 4 options. The cheapest is the SPDR MSCI ACWI ETF, with a total expense ratio of just 12 basis points, or 0.12%. Next cheapest is the Invesco FTSE All World ETF, which comes in at 15 basis points. The iShares MSCI ACWI ETF has a TER of 20 basis points, and the Vanguard FTSE All World ETF costs 0.22%. Something I particularly like about these funds is that they offer exposure to all sorts of markets, including emerging markets. Although emerging markets can be especially volatile in the short term, they often produce strong returns in the long run. They also provide greater diversification. If, however, you don't want exposure to emerging markets, the 6 ETFs on screen now invest in the stocks of developed global markets only. The cheapest offerings are from L&G and UBS and have a total expense ratio of just 10 basis points each. Remember, you could be paying many times that amount for an actively managed ETF. Yes, you might outperform some of these funds in the long run, but because of the higher costs entailed, the odds are stacked against you. Now, global equity trackers have delivered very decent returns in recent years, and you might have read of concerns that they're too heavily concentrated in large US stocks, technology stocks in particular. It's actually not unusual for markets to be dominated by a relatively small number of stocks. That said, the more expensive stocks are today, the more you should temper your expectations that they'll do well in the future. Personally, I would caution against not investing in the US stock market. However, you may want to reduce your exposure to the world's largest companies. One way to do that is to invest in an equal weight fund, which doesn't overweight the largest stocks. The Invesco World MSCI Equal Weight ETF, for example, has a TER of 20 basis points. Alternatively, you could pair one of the global equity ETFs we referred to earlier with a global small cap fund. In that case, a good option is the iShares MSCI World Small Cap ETF, which costs 35 basis points. Another way to diversify away from large growth stocks like the so-called Magnificent 7 tech stocks in the US is to use what's called a multi-factor fund. These funds provide exposure to risk premia which have produced higher returns over long periods of time, such as value, quality, or momentum. A word of warning, you do need to be very patient to invest in these funds because factors can underperform for very long periods. But if you do have that discipline, you might want to go for the JP Morgan Global Equity Multi-Factor ETF with a TER of 20 basis points. Or the HSBC Multi-Factor Worldwide Equity ETF, which costs 0.25%. Finally, you might want to invest in a way that aligns with your personal values. ESG funds may or may not outperform mainstream funds in the future, but they aim to have a positive social and environmental impact. You do pay a slight premium for ESG funds, but a reasonably priced option is the Vanguard ESG Global All Cap ETF, which has a TER of 24 basis points. The information in this video is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. Always do your own research, and if you're in any doubt, I strongly recommend you consult a qualified financial professional. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and why not leave a comment as well. Until next time, goodbye.